everybody, and welcome to Toffee Bluecast. Tonight is a big one. I've got with me Paul straight away. How you doing, Paul? You all right?
All good, yeah. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Just going to drop the banner straight away along the bottom. As many people as you can, get on and stay on, because I feel like this is a massive one with a big message that needs to get out. We have a guest today, Andy. A lot of you might know him on the Everton Twitter, BluesAgainstBloodCancer. And I spoke to him on a space, and what he's doing is fantastic. And I had to get him on the channel just to give him a platform to speak out to more, because I just think he's fantastic and what he's doing is fantastic. And if I can help him, I will. And I need all you lot as well that are listening to try and help him as well. So stay on, listen. This will be a big one, really interesting. And I'm going to introduce him straight away. How are we doing, Andy? You all right?
Hello, boys. Yeah, good, thank you. All right, you're okay, Paul.
There we go, just getting the screen set. I've got the banner along the bottom as well. You're right, Andy. So today, hopefully this gets out to a lot of people. I mean, we were speaking on a space, and do you want to just start off by telling us how you got into this Twitter account, Blues Against Blood Cancer?
Yeah, sure. It goes back, the whole story goes back about 15 years. Well, probably goes back a little further than that, to when I first registered as a blood stem cell donor with a charity called Anthony Nolan. I answered an appeal in the Echo, front page of the Echo. I come home from work and it just said, "Can you save Ella and Sam?" And to most people, that wouldn't mean anything. But to me, we just had our first child, and had it been a boy, it would have been called Sam. Had it been a girl, it was going to be called Ella. And as it was a girl, and we had Ella. So for me, the name straight away struck a chord. So I researched it a little bit further and ended up joining the stem cell register. And then in 2008, I was found to be a match for somebody. Not somebody I knew, sadly not Ella or Sam. But it turned out to be a football fan, a guy from London. He happened to be a Chelsea fan of all things. So immediately, straight after the donation, once I realised how everything worked, I got involved as a volunteer with the charity, and that carried on for years. And then, sadly, in July 2021, I think it was, I read on the Everton website about Gary Stevens. Unfortunately, his young son had been diagnosed with leukemia some time earlier, and had suffered a relapse, and was in need of a stem cell transplant to save his life. And sadly, despite searches worldwide, there was no quality. When I say quality, they look for a 10 out of 10 perfect match. And sadly, there wasn't one of those out there for Jack. He did end up having a transplant from a family member, from a sibling, but unfortunately, the match didn't work out. And in November 21, I think it was, Jack sadly passed away. But in the meantime, before he died, I got in touch with Gary via his wife online and got their permission to set up an account called Blues Against Blood Cancer, because I felt like there was a perfect opportunity to add donors to that. As they used it, it's a phrase I've picked up from them. It's a global pool of donors. Just because Jack lived in Australia, it didn't mean that his donor was going to come from Australia. It didn't mean it would come from a member of the family. So I felt like, as Gary, you're probably too young, you two, as Gary is an Everton legend who I grew up watching and enjoying, it just felt appropriate to set up an account to try and do our best to help someone in a really dire situation. As I say, sadly, we weren't able to get a match for Jack. But there are people who've gone on to join the register as a result of the account, and the account continues to grow. And it's just something we're taking along. But I need to reach out, particularly to younger donors or younger prospective donors, explain the process to them and see what it is that makes them tick. How do we get them registered? What's important? And that's where obviously opportunities like tonight could be priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I bless you for saying we both wouldn't remember. I'm a bit older than Dan, so I
just looked young.
I used to watch Gary when I was a kid. when I was a kid in the 80s, obviously part of that great team, and you know, spent a lot of years with us and certainly deserves our respect and everything else. I mean, basically treat me as a complete novice. I know nothing about it in terms of, you know, diagnoses and what it actually means and what you would have to do. And like you say, all I know really is from one of my grandparents passing away from lung cancer, and knowing from what I've read on yours. So what's the process when you started doing it years ago, when you tried to be a match and everything else? What did you physically have to do? What's the kind of process?
Back then, it was very different, very different. Back in, I think it was about 2006. Then, just to register on the stem cell register, you had to give a sample of blood. So, fortunately, my wife happens to be a nurse, so that was easy for me. She was able to take the blood, and we sent it off through the official channels. In fact, no, that's not right. That was part of the donation, that process. I went along to a donor register clinic. It was at the Echo of all places, after me talking about that. They hosted an event where people could go along, sign up, and you had to get a sample of blood back then. Now it's very, very different. It's a lot like, if you imagine a COVID swab, but it just swabs the inside of your cheeks. Doesn't go anywhere near the back of your throat like the COVID ones. Doesn't go anywhere near your nose or anything. You swab now, but taking it back just to where you were, in terms of blood cancer, people think, like, what's blood cancer? I've never heard of it or anything like that. We've all heard of leukemia, and that is what leukemia is. Leukemia is a form of blood cancer. There are many different forms, but it's very much an illness that affects children massively, and it's the 5th most common cancer. So it's something that we affect us, but we've had a number of high-profile supporters over the years where the club have had to get involved with appeals. But we've also had players. We've had the story with Gary recently, but prior to that, we lost Gary Ablett to leukemia, and again, Gary really struggled to find a match. They ended up settling for a match that wasn't perfect, that came from Ireland, and sadly, that wasn't a successful match in the end. It did give Gary extra time with his family, but unfortunately, it wasn't a success. So I think the message for me is leukemia, or blood cancer, is leukemia in essence. And in terms of finding cures for that, people undergo chemotherapy, radiotherapy, all the usual treatments that you can imagine, but that destroys their immune system. So a stem cell transplant basically provides a jumpstart to somebody's immune system. So if you've got leukemia, you would go into isolation. The chemotherapy will destroy your immune system. So you are in isolation for that reason, because any bug, anything like that, your body's got nothing to fight it with. So your donor, whoever that happened to be in the world, will go along, go through the donation process, which we'll touch on in a bit, which is incredibly straightforward for the vast majority of cases. And they would then be transferred and obviously transfused into the patient. That essentially is a bit like, I sent a tweet out early this week, I think it was. It's like giving a jump start to your immune system. So my stem cells would be infused into your body, assuming it goes through a little bit of a fight. There's something called graft versus host disease, where your body is trying to say, hang on, these don't belong to me, what's going on? But because your immune system is so non-existent, it can't really fight them. So mine take over, and then that asks your body to produce more of these. So you then become self-sufficient in healthy stem cells. Them stem cells are the building blocks, if you like, for all the cells that you need within your system to go and fight infection and fight obviously more serious illnesses. So that's what happens. I give your immune system a jump start, and that's the layman's, the simple way of explaining it, I guess.
Is there a, obviously it'll vary, but is there a success percentage, a success rate in when this happens?
I don't know that. I don't know the actual figures, unfortunately. What I do know is that in terms of people who register to be stem cell donors, the statistics, it's a real needle in a haystack. It used to be for every thousands, but sadly it's picked up slightly. For every 900 people that join the register, only one will ever go on to be a match for somebody and donate in their life. And once you join the register, let's say you join at 16, because you can join Anthony Nolan from age 16 onwards, you're on that until your 61st birthday. Now, for every 900 that do that, only one of them in all them years, whatever that combined total of years is, only one will ever be found to be a match. And for me, there's no rhyme or reason why I was a match for somebody. We've absolutely zero connection with each other. And I think some people are put off by the idea that, well, what if it didn't work? How would you feel? Would you be responsible now if you were found to be a match for somebody? So for me, I settled quite early on into the process that if this worked, fabulous. And I'm happy to say it did. But if it didn't, if the patient wasn't to recover or was only given a short period of time in remission, that wasn't my fault either, because I've done all I can. I'm not, I don't decide whether it's a success or a failure. But if I didn't join, I know for certain what would have happened. Paul, as I can now identify him as, he's no longer a stranger. We've met, and I've met his family and all of that. He would have died as a result of the illness. But thankfully, the stem cell transplant worked, and he's now 15 years post-transplant, and he's enjoying his life. So the impact of that is massive. It's obvious to anybody involved. So it's giving people a chance more than anything. If you don't put your hand up and say, yeah, I'll have a go at that, then you're never going to be a match for somebody. But if you join the register, odds are you'll never be, but you could be. And it's that, well, you can see now this, but on screen, when Everton treated us, they had us in for the, I don't know the year, 15 or something, I don't know. When Jermaine Beckford scored that goal against Chelsea on the last day of the season, when he ran and ran from one end of the pitch to the other with me, he won't get away from me, yeah. And obviously went on to score a great goal. But there's the card that I received from Paul just over 2 years after the transplant, just to say that he was doing well at that point.
Well, of course, I mean,
I know it's not further down.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's 1 in 900 at the moment, you know. But the thing is, how much does it mean to that one, and then the family of that one, and the friends of that one? So, you know, it's not without its worthiness, is it? It certainly means a lot. I
think that's more reason to get more on the list. The fact it is, like you say, less chance, 1 in 100. I think this is why a lot of us need to look at this now and realise that the more on the list, the more chance. Because when I was speaking to Andy on the space the other night, I said to him, it ended up really deep. And you think if your kid's in that situation where you tell you the only hope for your kid is to find a donor, a match, you'd wish that more people would have actually found, put themselves out there to do this. Go and put the name down, have it, and give your kid that option of surviving. It's that brutal. It's life saving. By what you said, a swab, you say now. I mean, it can be a blood test, a swab, or a blood test. You go, have it. Doesn't take long in the system. I mean, I've got the links in the comments. I've also got the links in the description on the channel to be a donor. And I just think it's something we've all got to push out there, Paul. I mean, he'll be back in a minute. I don't know where he's gone. It might be his connection. By the way, if he is struggling with his connection, it's just a quick thing. I do want other channels. I can't tell other channels what to do, but I know he lives more local than me. If you can get him on all the channels, get him on. Let Andy put his message out, because I generally feel like if the more this is put out, it could just catch on to one person. A lot of people could listen to it. It could get no one, but then you put it out again, and then someone thinks a second time, yes, I'm going to do it. And I just think this is massive. Honestly, I mean, look at that letter. That letter hit me. I don't know what you think when you read that, Paul, but I was like, what? He saved someone's life there. Like, that's a big thing that he's done. It's no thing that you should just take for granted. What he's done there is incredible, and that guy must thank him every day. I mean, that moment where he met him must have been bloody incredible. Like, honestly, it must have been a real deep moment. I'm hoping he's back in. I don't know where he's gone. We'll let him back in.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's the same with all the other sort of stories about, you know, people giving someone else their kidney, or, you know, heart transplant of someone, you know, family member who's passed away, but they've donated their heart, and then, you know, the relatives meet the person who's actually been given their heart, and they're able to live a longer life. And it's same with everything, isn't it? And I think some processes get lost, and maybe this is one of those processes that people really don't know about. You donate blood, you know, beyond that, there'd be lots of people who wouldn't know how to or why to donate in this way, you know. But the more people, the better. Andy's with us again now.
He's back now. I also think, I don't know what you think, Andy.
He just died on me.
No, it's okay.
Don't worry about it. I was just saying, Andy, I think a lot of people should everyone should give you the platform, because what you're doing, like, you went off them, so it died, so you didn't hear, but I was just saying to Paul, like, it must be the most incredible feeling, reading that letter and meeting that guy. It must have been so emotional, because that is just, it's life-saving what you've done. And if you didn't go and do it, I mean, like you said, you just put yourself out there, didn't expect to be a match. But if you didn't do that, the man won't be alive. This is, and it's just for you going out and doing it. And that's why more people, I said to you, Andy, more people have got to do this. They really have, because just on that chance.
That's exactly what it was. And it's quite humbling, you know what I mean, to think of the impact that it's had. But I take more, I've said this a lot now, I take more satisfaction from hearing that people may go on to be a potential match from someone that we've encouraged, that I've encouraged. There are groups around the country doing similar things to what I'm doing. And there's one particular couple of lads up in Scotland, group of firemen in Scotland, and they've not only recruited thousands and thousands of people to the register, which I can only dream of from this end, but they've made about 120 matches. Whoa. Actual matching donors, which is just off the scale. And
that's brilliant.
We're close to one. We've got one potential at the moment where somebody's been asked for a few further samples just to make sure that they may be a match. And I'll be honest, I'd take more satisfaction from that than from mine, because I think with mine, because it was so long ago now, I'd done it and then forgotten about it. And obviously, a couple of years later, you just get this letter out of the blue, and then it becomes, oh God, what have I signed up to here? And I thought, this is going to be really painful, really uncomfortable. And back then, I worked in a car factory. I worked in Vauxhalls, and I thought, I'm going to need time off work. I'm going to be in pain. I couldn't have been more wrong. The process really, really forward. Everything was looked after. There you go. Was a long time ago. I've got that. And those two kids, Ella and Sam, there are now 15 and 18. So that shows just how long ago it was. We just had Ella whenever I'm not sure what year that was. That's a few years after it had happened. But yeah, I'll take more from, if we can achieve something by recruiting other people, I'd take more from it. But I think you were asking, Paul, before it cut me off, you were asking about what it means to families when they find out they've got that match. And I'm lucky, really. I've been able to find that out, not only from Paul, because with Paul's, it was quite funny, to be honest. I went down to London and we did meet his family, but unfortunately, we had a BBC camera crew with us at the time. They were doing a bit of PR for Anthony Nolan, and they wanted to film a little bit of I don't even know what it was for, some sort of health documentary or something. Didn't end up getting aired. But it meant everything was a bit staged, and like the arrival at the house, obviously I'm feeling a bit embarrassed and a bit weird going to some stranger's house who I knew, for them it was really emotional. But we had to do this staged walk-in maybe 3 or 4 times, so it all felt a bit awkward and a bit fake, really. But once the cameras had sort of relaxed and we were all talking, we were sat there and Paul's mum just randomly said, "Oh, it feels really strange to think of you inside my son." Well, you can imagine the reaction in the room. Paul was like, "Mother, you can't," and it lightened the mood, and it was quite funny from that perspective. But I've just once, Blues Against Blood Cancer, hosted a space about 16 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, just for like-minded people, for people who were interested in this process, and it ended up where there was the likes of myself, there was people looking for donors, and there was people who've had transplants themselves, there was people who are parents whose children who've recovered, but there was also bereaved parents who joined us, and we ended up going for about 2 hours, and by the end of it, it felt like we'd gone around all of the various topics, and it felt a bit like a counselling session. And I said, you know what, this would make a brilliant podcast. And from that, one of the parents who is bereaved, she said, "Andy, you've hit on something." And the podcast now exists and is out there. It's in its second season, and there's about 10 episodes maybe in total. I know there's some more due out. Gary Stevens' wife, Louise, has agreed to record an episode. I was actually the filming, telling this story. But we've had like the chief exec of Anthony Nolan has been on it. We've got people from DKMS. So for people that don't know, they're the two charities that run the stem cell databases in the UK. So it's something that's growing, again, really slowly, but it's coming along, and more people are becoming aware. More and more people can listen from different perspectives. You get a donor's perspective, you get the expert. We've got a professor hematologist, Rob, who looks after the children in the oncology unit at Manchester, which is where a lot of the children, whether you're from Liverpool or from the Northwest, you would go there. And Rob is idolised by parents who've been affected by this. And he's actually out doing the Tour de France at the minute, trying to raise funds to carry out further trials. He's unbelievable. And we've spoken online, and he's saying, "Listen, can we do something together?" And I'm like, "Me and you?" He's just off the scale. It's as I say, it's a bit. When I say humble, it's a bit embarrassing, to be honest, because you kind of think what I did was dead easy, and I'll talk about the process as and when you want to do that. I'll explain how that works.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, it sounds like it becomes a bit addictive. Like you say, those people that have got 120 matches and you're on one, it's like an addiction now. You're thinking, right, let's see how many we can get. Like one, it's an incredible feeling to get a match. You're saving lives, and you are putting yourself out there to be as effective as you can be. And this is why I think that everybody within Everton should give you a platform to get you to say what you're going to say, to hit as many people as you can. Your Twitter account, you said you've only set it up, it's on 5,000 already. It should be on 30,000. I mean, there is, we'll mention it now actually because it kind of goes into it perfect. There is some Everton people that are really helping you here, and you've got, I'll put it on the pictures of them that are helping you out, but you put it on your Twitter to those people that haven't got him on Twitter or haven't got Twitter at all. You are taking over an account, ain't you? So this could be massive for you because it's a big account as well.
Yeah, on Monday, Neville Southall, he's let me use it before, and this is probably the third, maybe fourth time, I'm not sure. But Neville Southall, to any Evertonian, if we're looking for a legend, and I'm not sure we've got a bigger one, in everybody's eyes, for not just for what he achieved as a player, but for what he's achieving now just as a person. He's unbelievable, and his profile online, he's got, I think we're in the region of about 190,000 followers. So he very generously gives up his account for a couple of hours every night to different causes that he checks out, and he decides if he feels that they're worth, and they're worth the risk, if you like, because I know he has had some criticism over the years for the various things, various accounts and charities that have been involved, but he's allowed me access to it. And I know after the first two, we'd had somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people doing the register. as a result of those early takeovers, which were probably a couple of years ago now. And that platform is amazing for anything like this, because I feel like sometimes you preach into the converted. What I need to do is reach other people, particularly younger people and particularly young fellas, because again, statistically, young males make the most successful donors. No idea why. I'm not a medical expert, but while they make up the most successful donors, they're also one of the most underrepresented groups on the register. So it seriously impacts, and it's wondering how to reach those people, and things like YouTube and things like social media, TikTok. I've tried. Well, my daughter's tried to get me to understand it, but I struggle with that, I'll be honest. And I'm not sure how you can make joining a stem cell register look exciting on TikTok, because it isn't. You're swabbing the inside of your mouth and you're putting something in the post and you're sending it off. It's not something that you can really make exciting on a video. You can't do a dance to it, I don't suppose.
It's all about who does it, isn't it? It's all about who does it, and those people following that person, isn't it?
Yeah, getting someone else to do it. And there's a possibility. I was talking to somebody today about the potential of getting Wayne Rooney to follow the account. Now, somebody who knows somebody has been in touch to say that might well be a possibility. And I was looking at Wayne's profile. He's got 17 million followers.
Yeah.
Now, imagine a tiny percentage of them were to just have a look at our account and think, oh, I could do that. Because that's the truth of it. Anyone can. But I say within reason, within the age brackets and within the health restrictions and everything, because the last thing Anthony Nolan or DKMS want to do is put anyone else at risk. So there are various health conditions that would prevent you from doing that. And for those people, and I have a lot of people who come on and say, I'm sorry, I would have done, but I'm too old. And I say, well, not everyone in your family is. Just share it with them. Pass it on. Tell your grandkids. Like, as soon as my daughter was 16, the first thing she done was join the Anthony Nolan register. My lad will be 16 in October. First thing he's going to do, or first thing he's going to be told to do, whether he does it or not, but I'm sure he will. The first thing he'll do is join the register. And it's something that I've pestered people about over the years, within reason. I try not to. My mates would say otherwise. They'd say that I kind of bore them to tears with it. But you mentioned it becoming a bit addictive, and Ali, the guy up in Scotland with the fire service, we have joked about it many times. I say, can you leave some for me? Because I'm trying, and I don't want to be just shouting into an empty room all the time. And that's why things like this is where it is a chance to reach out and catch a few people. Because I've got people, even people I work with, they're completely, they're aware that I do it, but they don't engage in it in any way. And I try not to bombard people with it, but I do keep pushing online, because I think that's the main way I can reach out to people.
Yeah, I just had two questions before you go into the process and stuff, and how people can get involved and do it. It's just just sort of popped into my head, really. In terms of you're saying about the males being underrepresented, sort of young lads, is it a case of male stem to male donors to men who need it? Is it sex for sex, or is it anybody?
No, I don't think it is. No, it's more than we think of blood donors, and we all know, like, your blood group might be O negative or A, whatever you are. This is far deeper than that. It's a DNA match that we're looking for, and again, I'm not expert enough to understand how that works. I think it's a lot to do with young male donors. Your pelvis. Your pelvic bones are the main driver for your stem cells. So people think of the center, we think of bones as hard and brittle. They're not. The inside of your bones is where your bone marrow. Hence, it used to be called a bone marrow transplant. That's how people. I think it sounded quite scary. That it's the old bone marrow transplant. The name, as a PR thing, was probably, I'm not sure when it was, but it became a stem cell transplant, because in reality, you're not taking the bone marrow, you're taking the cells from within the bone marrow. So your bone marrow is the stem cell factory. So that's what's making them. So with males having stronger, bigger bones, generally, there's more stem cells in there, the product's better, it's withdrawn. People, I'll explain the process now. People, again, from the old bone marrow transplant, people will be having panic attacks over how it's done. But I'll explain why it's much easier in a sec. And that's that. Just it's purely down to that, as far as I can tell. It's not male to male or anything like that. It goes way beyond that. Cool.
And the other bit as well, because obviously cancer means chemo for lots of people. Is the stem cell option something that comes before that kind of thing? I know obviously every case is on its merit. Can you do, because both of these sort of be used to try and help people, or just
that's
the one?
Exactly, it's both. It would be both. Right? The chemotherapy would be the first approach, and I know from Paul's case, he'd gone through all the various treatments, and then because I was contacted in February of whatever year it was, I lose track of where it was, 2008, I think it was it? I was contacted in the February to say, we think it may be a match. Can we take some more blood and everything? So that was all done. I didn't end up donating until almost the end of August. So he was, while I was being tested and checked over to make sure that I was fit, he was also undergoing different trials of different drugs to see if they could get a response. Obviously, that didn't work out, and it meant that I did go through the process. And then in the following February, so after the donation in August, the following February, I was contacted again and told he may need a top-up because he'd picked up an infection. It was impacting on him and his body wasn't fighting it properly. So would I go back and do a further top-up of something called lymphocytes, which again are another product within our blood? I didn't have a clue what they were. And it was basically the same process. So I just went down to London in my case and just did it again, this time for about 4 hours, and came back. And then 2 years and 3 months from that was the card that you put up earlier. 2 years and 3 months from that date was when I received the card from Paul to say that he was in recovery. Because all that process, you're anonymous. So when I was contacted to say I might be a match for somebody, all I was told is it's a male over 30, and that was it. Don't know anything else. So you might be told it's a child, a female under a certain age. That's it. You don't know anything else, and that remains the case for at least for 2 years post transplant. It's the anonymity rules. I think it's to protect both parties, really. Obviously, you've got a patient who's really ill, but you've also on the other side, you've got somebody who's donated and may not want to feel pressured by the outcome. I didn't have to know the outcome of this. I was given the option, do you want to know? And I said, yeah, of course I do. I'm happy because like I said to you earlier, I'd reconciled with the fact that if it didn't work, I'd done all I could. So I wasn't going to kind of hold myself responsible in any way, and nor should anyone. If it did work, fabulous. It was only going to be a good news story. So I was happy with that. But then it was also the onus to get in touch and to make contact lies with the patient, with the recipient. So it was Paul's choice when he got in touch with me or not. I had no say in it, because again, I think that's to stop any sort of coercion or anything like that. If imagine you've gone through it and then you decided you hated it, but you were getting phone calls from someone saying, well, you've got to do it because this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Or you said, well, look, I'll do it, but I want $5,000. Or there's just, it's murky.
I'm glad you said that. I was thinking
area, isn't it?
I said that to my partner. I said to my partner, I goes, if they know who you are and you're a match, they'll probably offer you about 100K for the match. I said that to her. It could get
cheap. I just said 5 hours. Said 5 grand. No, it's so it's all kept anonymous for that period of time, and then it's up to the patient if they want to make contact, which thankfully Paul did, and then obviously, as I say, we've gone on to meet and we've done various things together to help push the message out there. But if I answered the question, I can't even remember what the question was. I went off on it.
No, you're fine. I've got a question from Jamie who comes on a lot. And he was just saying, is there any chance that you could be a match for more than one person? Has that happened?
Yeah. I don't know if it's happened, but it has. In fact, it has happened, because I know of a few people that I've come across online who've donated to 2 different people. But there is one person that I remember reading about, and he's done it 3 times. Now, I know from Anthony Nolan's perspective, when I donated, I was off the register for 2 years, I think, as a result of, in case I was needed again for Paul. And then after that 2 years, I was then back in the pool, waiting to see if I was a match for anyone else. Obviously, that's not happened again. But I'm still there. I've got a few years yet until I get to 61, thankfully. But yeah, it is possible. What the odds would be, I have no idea. It must be in the millions.
Astronomical.
That your DNA would be a match for somebody else's. It's just off the scale.
Yeah.
Well, I know you haven't come on here for compliments, but I tell you something, you're a fantastic person. I mean, we only met a couple of days ago, and like you say, you've done it for one person. You went back in. I mean, this is an open channel now. It probably is scary to a few, and this is why I wanted to put it out there, because fact is, some people are different to others. It's like, say, I might not be brave enough to do it. My partner, she could be hardcore. She wants to do it. And it just gets passed on.
Well, we'll talk about that bravery, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It just gets passed on, and it's just about we're not pushing people into doing it. I just want it to get spread around for you to just put the message out to people to know what it is, an understanding of what it is. That's the main aim, isn't it? For people to know about it, because I didn't have a clue when you told me on a space.
100%.
I didn't have a clue.
100%. It's not for everyone.
No, when you told me,
sorry.
I was just going to say, when you told me, I didn't have a clue. And it's important that people know, because the fact is, some people might want to do it. Like you've done it, you did it again, and you're hungry to do it again. Mm-hmm. There's millions of people out there with your personality that are willing to do it that probably haven't come across it. Now, this is why footballers, do you know what you said, like you need younger people to do it as well? Maybe they should get footballers to do it. It's like popular, isn't it? I think imagine if someone like I won't say Richarlison because he don't play for us anymore. Imagine if someone just like England player or Harry Kane or Marcus Rashford, big on social media. He's done a lot. Auntie, imagine if someone like that did it live and just said, "I've done it," and then other people might think, you know what, if he's doing it, it's trend. And I think like stuff like that could make it catch him in my eyes. I think that could be massive.
Imagine if every under-21 Premier League side did it. Do you know what I mean?
And you've touched on something there, because a few years ago, over at the dark side, I went over there to do a talk to their youth team, and it was as a result. Again, I talk about how Everton have been affected, sadly, over at Liverpool as well. Brad Jones, who was their keeper, he also lost a young son to leukemia, and part of their campaign, I was involved in that and went over to Castle Grayskull and did a talk to their youth team, and all their youth team, to be fair, back then they all did sign up. Well, I say all, I don't know if it was every single one of them, but certainly the vast majority went from listening to a talk from us. Brad Jones was there with his partner, and him and Danny had a chat with everyone, and we explained the process to them, explained what was involved, and they all signed up at the time. But I remember being a little bit disheartened by their fans as well, the turnout, because they hosted the donor clinic, and the same thing happened with Gary Ablett when Gary was ill. Everton hosted thing, and I remember being there with Gary's family, with his wife and his daughter, and being totally underwhelmed. Matt Jackson turned up just to do a little bit of PR with us. And again, we were talking in dribs and drabs. We had a lot of Everton staff come up and join the register on the day. But again, supporters aren't catching on, and I don't know what it is, even with Gary's more recently. Before there was a run, Everton in the community were doing something, and they had DKMS at Goodison. And again, a couple of hundred. And I know that sounds okay, but there's so many of us. It baffles me why people won't. And I've noticed there you've got tattoos on your arms. Certainly on one arm, I can see them there. You talked about being brave. Now, if you've got a tattoo, or if you've got your ears pierced, or anything else, that is worse themselves. Okay, let's get that out in the open. That anything like that, I wouldn't dream of doing. Not for anything. I'm not brave. It's not about being brave. It's just about being asked. It's about caring enough to put yourself in someone else's shoes for 2 minutes. And just because I know for a fact, everyone watching, if someone they loved needed a transplant, they would then be doing everything they could. They'd be shouting from the rooftops, asking everyone they knew, hosting events to try and get as many people. Don't wait to learn what difference it makes if it's someone that you love, because the odds are you won't be able to help them, sad as that sounds. Because, again, siblings, only 25% of patients will find a match from a sibling or a relative. It's not what we think it is. We just assume, oh, my brother will donate for me, my sister will. It's not how it works. 75% of patients are relying on total strangers. So we need people to be them strangers, because otherwise, who's going to do it for us if we happen to need it? And again, the odds are slim. That chances are we won't ever need it, and we won't ever have to give it. But just put your hand up and say, yeah, if I'm needed, I will. That's all you've got to do. And then you keep in touch over the years. If you change your dress, just let them know. Because again, imagine they find out, oh, Paul, you're a match for somebody, and they try to get in touch with you, but Paul's changed his mobile and he's moved out, didn't tell anyone. Imagine.
Yeah, it's your line then, isn't it? It's your line then. So what can we do then?
Went blank there, guys. Sorry, I don't know if it did at your end.
Yeah,
so
it's okay.
For us, what we need people to do is age 16 to 30, they can register with Anthony Nolan. Just go on, have a read of it. If it's for you, fill in. There's a little online application which takes about 3 minutes. You fill in some personal details. They'll then send you the swabs I referred to before. You swab the inside of your cheeks for 30 seconds, put them back in the free post. That's it, you're done. In about 6 weeks, you'll get a little, like a credit card, just to say you're amazing, you're on the register. That's it. You put it in your wallet and you carry on with life. The same applies with DKMS, exactly the same process. You go to their website, fill in their application. Don't do both. Whatever you do, don't do both, because it's a waste of money from their part. It costs them £40 for every person that they register in terms of processing the swabs through the labs and everything else and putting you on the database. You only need to do one because they share intelligence. I don't know why they're not a combined. I haven't yet worked that out, but they're separate charities. But DKMS will recruit donors from 17 up to 55. So that includes a much wider audience than Anthony Nolan. People ask me about the age thing. As far as I can make out, Anthony Nolan have restricted theirs to 30 because they found the younger matches make the best matches. So they're trying to focus their interest on younger people, more successful matches, because they use their funds effectively then, if that makes sense. Because obviously being a charity, every pound will be precious to them.
Yeah, I was going to say what I might have missed before. What's the DKMS stand for? What is it in particular?
I don't actually know. I don't know what those initials stand for. It was a charity. I keep going to say company. It was a charity that started in Germany, I believe. I never looked. I don't actually know what that they mean anything.
They're just known as one of those.
Yeah. There's the DK. They used to be called, before they changed their name, they were called BluesAgainstBloodCancer UK. But they changed that. I think they got in line with the rest of their organisation, because I know there's DKMS in the States and there's in Germany. And again, we lag way behind. Germany, people once they're at uni and things like that, they're queuing up to join the register because the education's in place to explain to them. That is happening here. There are two different organisations that go into schools. This is how I started. You go into schools and you're speaking to sixth form students and letting them know about their options in terms of becoming a blood, a stem cell and an organ donor. So that is happening, but it's when I say it's on a small scale, it's on a big scale for the people doing it, but it's not yet national. I mean, we need that, but there's a whole lot of other things that we need in schools as well. It's a difficult process to reach out to everybody. But in terms, you want me to explain the donation process? Is that, should we
go on, go for it.
Signing up to. So, like I mentioned, tattoos and things like that, they're far more. Well, I imagine they are, because I've not had one. But if you're found to be a match, they will then ask you for some blood samples so that they can do further testing. And I mentioned earlier, my wife's a nurse, so she was able to take mine, and we just pop them back in the post. But for anyone else, you nip to your doctors, you explain what it is, they'll take some blood for you. Again, you pop them back down to the charity.
In and out. Be back on it in a sec.
Invite you one of their donation centres. Yeah, are we back?
Yeah. It just cut you in and out. Then it'll put you back on in a second.
Yeah, are we okay?
There we go. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So if you are, obviously you send off those bloods, and then in my case, my donation was in London. They now do plenty of donations in Sheffield as well. So if you're up north, it tends to be Sheffield. Back then when I did it, it was London. All taken care of by either charity, whichever charity you happen to be involved in. They take care of all your travel. They take care of all your expenses. They also will make sure that you're paid by your employer. They will cover your wages basically for your employer, so that you're not out of pocket in any way. You can take your partner with you if you want to, or a friend, whichever you need to. So in my case, down to London, I had a full MOT to make sure that I was fully fit, because the last thing they want to do is put someone at risk while they're trying to help someone else, because you end up with two patients. So they don't want that. So they check that I'm fully fit. Once we get to go ahead, in the 4 days leading up to any stem cell donation, you're given 2 injections of something called GCSF. And that's basically, it's like a hormone, and it makes your bones produce extra stem cells, so that on day 5, your body is flush with extra cells. So what you're donating, you don't actually need, because you've produced extra over those 5 days. Those injections are like any other. They're an injection. Okay, so it hurts a little bit, doesn't it? When it breaks the skin, of course it hurts a little bit, but come on, it's an injection, and then it stops. It goes away. The pain doesn't last, does it? So you have them. By day 4, you start to feel as if maybe you've played footy or you've done a bit of gardening or something. You can tell something's happening, especially around your hips. So and your pelvis, you can start to feel a little bit, bit awkward there. I might have slept funny, but it's just your bones and the larger bones, like I referred to earlier, working that bit harder. Day 5, you go to your stem cell hospital, whichever one it is. As I say, in my case, I was down in London in a private place in Harley Street. It was really posh, to be honest. And a needle goes in one arm. So I'm showing it kind of here. A needle goes in one arm. That takes the blood out. It goes through a cell separating machine, a bit like a dialysis machine. That takes out the good stuff. It takes out the stem cells that they need. The rest of the blood products comes back to me via the needle in the other arm. So essentially, I was sat up in a bed, needle in one arm, needle in the other, sat there watching the telly. Back then, I didn't have Twitter and all of that, so you couldn't pass your time the same as we could now. So sadly, I had to watch cricket, which wasn't great. But that was probably the most painful part of the process. So in my case, my donation was over 2 days. So at the end of day 1, I was disconnected. Obviously, I was there for maybe about 4 or 5 hours in total. Just sitting, chatting, you can have some lunch. A bit awkward because your arms are kind of restricted a little bit. You definitely can't go for a week. So that's a bit difficult. The nurse was kindly offering, but I declined. Big South African guy, and I was like, nah, let's not go there. And so at the end of the day, the worst part, they took the needles out, but obviously they held them in place with tape, with medical tape on my arms. And the first thing he done was rip the tape off my arms. And I was like, I was in agony. And he was laughing his head off. He said, "You've just sat there, potentially giving someone's life, and you're crying because I've just pulled your hairs out." I was like, that was unbelievable, the pain. And it became a bit of the hope that night. And I knew I was going back the next morning. So I thought, he's not doing that again. So before I went back to the hotel, I shaved a big patch in my forearms, both arms, so that when I got back the next day, he connected me back up to the machines, and he just burst out laughing. Knew exactly what was happening. He said, "I can't believe you've just done that." And so I'd shaved these big squares on both forearms, so that when he ripped his plasters off the next day, he couldn't hurt me. So yeah, it's that's the process in 9 out of 10 cases. The vast majority of cases, that's how it's taken. It's called PBSC, which means peripheral blood stem cell. So your peripheral blood, the blood that's flowing around your body with these extra cells in, they take it out, they take the cells, they give you it back. So you're never without anything. You're not at any risk. You're just sitting there. In our case now, you'd be on your phone, you'd be tweeting, you'd be blogging it, photographing everything that you needed to. Back then, I couldn't do that. In the other cases, there are cases where the best process is called the stem cell harvest. Now, that's more like what people would remember, the old bone marrow transplant. But in this case, you are under a general anaesthetic, so you're asleep. It involves 1 night in hospital. So general anaesthetic, so that you're asleep. Needle goes in to the soft bone marrow part of your pelvic bone. So again, you don't feel it because, as I say, you're asleep. They then withdraw the bone marrow, essentially, the soft tissue, the stem cells that contains the stem cells. That's very rare that has to happen, but that's subject to the patient's illness. So I think if you've gone so far down the process, I was given a choice. The doctors said to me either or would work, and I just said, well, look, whichever is going to work best for you. I'm this far down the line. I'm not going to bail now and leave somebody at death's door. So you do whatever you think's best. So they opted for this PBSC method, which suited me. It was fine, whichever way. But so 1 in 10 cases is taken the other way, which is, as I say, general anaesthetic, so you're asleep. Needle takes out the stem cells instead of from your blood. They take it. I think it's more pure. I think it's to do with that. And then you'll wake up. You'll have a little plaster on your pelvic area, and then spend the night in the hospital instead of the hotel, and then back you go. In my case, I finished day 2. It happened to be my wife's birthday, so that's how I always remember the date. I was in London. I jumped on the train after, say, about 2 o'clock, after we'd done the few hours in the morning. Jumped the train, was back home, and then we went for a meal that night. Had a few beers, something to eat, and a few beers, something to drink. And then I was home. I was tired. That was the extent of it. I was a bit tired. I think that was a Friday. By Monday, I was back on nights, building cars in Vauxhalls, and that was it. I had a couple of, had a little bruise here, and as if you'd given blood from both arms, and that was it. It was ridiculous how easy it was.
I think
I had worse hangovers.
I was going to say, I think the thing to remember is whatever you go through to be on the register and then follow on after that is zero compared to giving someone years and years on their life, isn't it?
So what it means to them is unreal. I'm not sure I sent you this link, but maybe I should share it later because I have put it out recently. There's a really old Anthony Nolan promo, and it's to the Coldplay song of Fix You. And when they first released it, it was not that long after my donation, and it's really, really effective. If anything, the donor in it over eggs how uncomfortable or how tired they were for me, because it was just really simple from my perspective. But you can imagine it's like, I will try to fix you, and it's if you never try, then you'll never know how much you're worth. And it works. That song just worked for the way that we filmed it. It was kind of a 2 lives, and you get to see the donor and you get to see the patient and what each of them go through, and then the end result. And I only wish it had been pushed more, and or maybe updated even, because it's incredibly effective for putting across that exactly what you've just said, what I had to do compared to what Paul was going through. And little did we know, when we met, we found out Paul was only 2 miles down the road, because at the end of my donation, the 2 bags of cells were, I had my name was put on them, and the nurse kind of threw them to me and said, have you got any message for them? And a little bit embarrassing, but I just sort of kissed the bag of cells and said, nil satis is the optimum. And I know that sounds dead corny, But to me, in my head, I was just wishing them luck, nothing but the best. Off you go. And there was a courier. There was a motorcycle courier waiting, essentially at the end of the bed, to take them, because that's how it works. It literally comes from me into one of those blood boxes you see on the back of a motorbike, and off they go. Now, they could have been, for all I knew, they could have been going anywhere. They could have been going on a plane and going all over the world. Instead, I now know they were just going down to the Royal Imperial Hospital on, I think it was Tottenham High Road or something like that. They weren't going far at all. And I've spoken to Paul and his mum about that day from their perspective, because they're sat anxiously waiting all day for this motorcyclist to arrive. They know I'm somewhere doing it. They don't know where I am. And they're waiting all that time, and they're thinking, come on, is this ever going to happen? And from speaking to other people, it's quite underwhelming, apparently. Just, it's brought in, it's hooked up on a drip, and it's just fed into it, and that's it. There's no real song or dance from their perspective. At that point, they're still in isolation because they're incredibly ill. They're just put on a drip, and these cells are infused. They don't know anything about it, they don't feel it, they're just sitting there again, same as I was. And then the rest of it is down to science, magic, good luck. I don't know what it's down to.
Imagine if it was, I mean, obviously Paul's a grown fella. Imagine if you were waiting and it was your kid you were waiting it for. Do you know what I mean?
Again, I've spoken to those people.
Yeah.
I
think that's why
the Ellerons.
I was just going to say, I think that's why you always need to think of the outcome at the end. Like, sometimes you think about what you've got to go through if you do it, but you've got to think of the situation they're in. They're waiting for life or death. They're literally waiting, like, for you to come. Like you say, you come with that. It's a special moment. You've got the chance to save your life. For them, they'll do anything. For them, it's nothing. For you, you're putting yourself out because you're putting yourself out your comfort zone, but you literally could save your life. And that's, I mean, we'll come up to an hour now. I'll probably have you on again, Andy, to drop you on again. You've explained, like, how easy it is. And even if people, this is what I wanted to say on this as well, when I said getting you on to give the problem, even if people don't want to do it, if you don't want to do it, share it, like it. Andy Mitchell, he's got it there, his Twitter account underneath. Look there, Blues Against Blood Cancer. All us Toffees should be sharing his stuff. I was thinking to myself, well, we've only just met. I was thinking, like, every month, the first of every month, you could probably say all Toffees, retweet this and have a big spread out. Every first of every month, just have an Andy Blues
open to any ideas.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean, though? Just once a month, just a big spread awareness on Twitter where everyone says, you're right, you put something out on the first and say, right, can you all Toffees come together to get behind this? And then, by the way, we've said this already, it's not just about Toffees, it's about other fans as well. This is bigger than football. Yeah. This is about people, life and death. So if everyone can catch on to it and spread it, then it's just about it getting round and awareness. Like, some people might listen tonight and it might scare them, they might not be interested. Someone could listen and they could think they want to be exactly like you and do what you've done is amazing. Some people might have that in them. They might go and do it. They could be a match. I mean, you've done it. You've been the match, and it happens. You're a living example that it does work. And I just think, like, all different Everton platforms should have you on. I think the footballers are helping you out a little bit. I think everyone needs to just get behind you, help you out, and you just do the best you can do on spreading it. And then, like you say, if it catches, it does. If it don't, it does. But at least you know, I know what you're like. At least you know you yourself have done everything you can to spread awareness, because you know that can help people just by catching one person. Look what you've done. One person can save a life. And look, the life is just, come on, seriously, if your kids are in that situation, I completely understand if some are scared to do it. And Jamie said there.
Me too. It's not for everybody. I get that 100%. But
you're a warrior, though.
Just
you're a warrior, Andy. I suffer with a few nerve issues. I don't take medication for them. Just don't want that to potentially go against them joining the register.
It would be entirely dependent. There are on the website. There's a section. There's like an FAQs, and it will have the medical conditions that would exempt people from joining. So I don't, as I say, I'm not the medic side of things.
No, you're not going to have every answer because you're not a doctor. But at the end of the day, I am having you on, listening to you on a space, having you on now. I just want to say, just because time's gone doesn't mean what you did was because it was back then. You should forget about it. What you did was incredible, by the way. And Evertonians, I'm proud to have you as a freaking Everton fan, I tell you, because what you did was incredible. And not everyone is as an amazing person as you, because you literally, you went, you had it, and then you was, I'll have it again, I'll do anything. And if you get more people like you in the world, what an incredible world it would be. Honestly, because this is the first time I heard your story properly. I think I've only spoken to you once, and what you've done is incredible. We're coming up to an hour now, so I was just going to say, any last words? I'll try and have you on again a couple of months down the line. I'll keep sharing your stuff. Everyone else, Toffies, get on it, share it. Other fans as well, share it. Let's just spread the word. Let's give him a cracking platform to do what he wants to do, because he's putting his time and his effort out to try and help people. And I think a lot of people will be grateful. Like you say, you've got one match, you'll keep going and you'll get more matches. So any last words, Andy?
Thanks is the main one. Thanks for the opportunity just to get that word out. And it is what I said earlier. It's just put yourself in somebody else's shoes. If it was someone you loved, you'd do anything you could for you to do it. Now, really simple process. Go on and find out. If it's not for you, absolutely fine. Just check it out. 16 to 30, it's Anthony Nolan. 17 to 55, DKMS. Process is really straightforward. Find out about it. If it's for you, brilliant. Let us know, though. Follow us. Let us know that it's you, so that we can push it. Keep telling everyone else. That's it.
Yeah, I have got it.
Keep it rolling.
I was going to say, I have got it in the comments. The two links that you gave me that you've just said are in the comments. So if you click on the channel and look at the comments at the top, one of the pinned ones, the two links are there. It will take you straight to. Have a read. If you're interested, go for it. But at least have a read. That's what I'm saying. Always take the information in. Always take the information in. And they are there. And I just have a read. That's all I will say. Anyone that's come on and had to listen, please just read it. That's all we want. And I'm sure Andy does as well, the way he speaks. All we want you to do is just read it and see if it's for you. I think just it's like walking past someone that's injured, like just had a car crash. You wouldn't want somebody. Imagine if your kid had freaking got hit by a car and someone just walks by him and you find out, you think, this is what I want you to do. You just help, just have a read. And if you do want to do it, or you don't want to do it, even if you don't want to do it, pass it on to someone else. Just share it. Do your bit. Let's all in this will come together and do our bit to try and spread it. But yeah, I know you've got that Twitter account soon. What you're doing is amazing. You've got the we're coming to an end now. Sorry, we've got the mugs as well. These are his mugs on his channel. These are amazing. He's
not many left now, to be honest.
Yeah, you're doing really well with them. I was just going to put it on there. These are the mugs. Just spread awareness. Everyone, just spread the awareness. Help him out. He's doing a really good deed, and I think people like you, we've got to get behind. I really do, because absolute boss. And we were saying on the space, Speedo Mick does an amazing thing. I think you're up there with what you've done, mate. I really do. I think what you're doing is incredible. Get the mugs, spread awareness.
Jesus Christ, you're talking. No, he's off the scale.
Still, mate, as you said, you saved a life, mate. I tell you, you've done incredible. And that's his. Go on his Twitter account, have a look as well. Retweet his stuff. Let's all work together and spread his stuff. I was just going to get rid of that now. We are coming to an hour. I will have you on a couple of months down the line just to see how you're getting on and stuff, just to keep spreading it. There's so much stuff you said you're going to do. You've got ideas, you've got events, footballers are going. So what I would say is get on Andy Mitchell's account, subscribe on the channel if you want to, like and subscribe. But this has been more about Andy, so I don't really care about that. So it's more about you and spreading the awareness. Thanks for coming on. Absolutely, boss. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's the first time you've come on, and keep doing it. Keep going on.
I've loved it. It is the first, but I've loved it.
Yeah, keep going on. People get on all the Everton fans. There's bigger ones than this. I presume they're going to give you a platform. Come on, if I can do it, they can do it. Let all their viewers and subscribers see what you've got to say, and just pass the word around. That's all you're asking. So thanks everybody for coming on. Paul, last words from you as well.
Get on Neville's Twitter on Monday, 7:00, I think. Get on there, spread the word.
That's right, yeah.
And support it.
I'll answer questions and things. I'll explain the process to them. Any questions anyone's got, send them across and I'll answer them all on Monday on that account. That way we can reach everyone all at once.
Sound. Brilliant.
That's fantastic. Right, everybody, for tonight,
Brilliant.
that's it. But thanks. Hopefully,
Cheers,
we've
boys.
spreaded awareness and spread it yourselves as well. Spread this as a video on Twitter, spread it on YouTube, and like and comment. And just go and tell your family members, go and tell everyone the process, see if they'd like it. Just tell them. That's all we're asking for. Spread the word. Have a good night, everyone. Up the fucking Toffees, I've got to say that.
Nice one. Absolutely.